Yeah, hello, welcome to a new video in the e4, e5 repertoire series. This video will deal with moves other than 2 knight f3, knight c3, bishop c4 and f4. These we've already covered or will cover in the next videos. So what we need to look at here is mostly the move to d4. Oops. d4. And this introduces either some Gambit continuation or an opening called the center game, where white recaptures on d4 with the queen. Maybe let's first start with the other tries here for white. There are some really rarely played moves. One is knight f3, which can easily transpose into another opening. I just recommend here to play knight c6 to transpose to the Scotch game. You need to know this anyway, so you can easily transpose here. If you want to try to punish white for this somewhat obscure move order, you could also consider this bishop check here, which would win a pawn basically, as moves other than c3 don't make much sense here. So white usually goes c3 and you get an extra pawn here. This is quite similar to a line that might arise after c3 where black captures the pawn, and here bishop b4 can easily transpose to this kind of setup I shown before. But my simple approach here on knight f3 is to just play knight c6 and transpose to the Scotch. I simply don't like to bother with additional lines, and I honestly don't like to take the pawn anyway, so just knight c6 and you've got another opening. Another idea here for white is bishop c4, which you can just answer with knight f6, and this I've shown briefly in the video 3 of the series, I think, where this position was occurring here, and it's a transposition. I've shown this briefly: e5, d5, or knight f3, bishop b4 check. Okay, so this also could happen, but usually white recaptures here or plays c3. c3 is a really ancient continuation, a typical Gambit style approach. Black here has two main options, or well, two options. I don't think there's a decent third move. Black can capture on these c3, after which white usually just recaptures or even sacrifices or tries to sacrifice even more. I think theoretically this continuation is fine for black. He can take this pawn and defend the position with this extra material. But I don't like to, in general, like to give white some initiative for a pawn. So I just play d5 here, which is, I think, also still the main move instead of taking. After d5, white doesn't have much choice. He needs to capture on d5. He doesn't have any other move, basically. Sometimes people even played e5 here in speed games, but you can just take the pawn and you're just a simple pawn up and have also a nice central control. This is just an extra pawn for nothing. Here you can even have a choice to just defend d5 or advance. Black is just a pawn up. White doesn't have any chances to attack here. So e takes d5 is by far the main move, after which black just recaptures with the queen. And here white needs to get his pawn back, after which black develops knight c6 and also attacks d4. As you can see, this approach leads to very quick development from black, so you have no issues whatsoever with getting your pieces to active positions. Both bishops are already open, and white also has got this isolated pawn here, so you've got some natural target. Now white plays knight f3, which is, I think, by far the main line. If white defends d4 in another way, maybe bishop e3, you just continue with quick development, like the check here, knight c3, knight f6. Of course you can move the queen later. Right now the pin saves this piece, let's say like this. And black just has a fine position here. You've got everything nicely on active positions. You can just castle next move, or even try to increase the pressure on c3. This bishop might go to g4 or to e6, helping to blockade the pawn. So black is just fine here. You don't need to know any specific lines, just develop your pieces to active squares. On knight f3, black plays bishop g4 and renews the threat on the d4 pawn, like capturing on f3 and then capturing on d4. And now white usually goes bishop e2. He can also play knight c3, but just knight c3, after which black plays this, and usually it transposes to the line I'm about to show, so there's not much difference. Bishop e2, and now the check here. Of course black cannot immediately immediately win material here because of this check here, and you lose the queen. So it's not that easy. So the check is just good here. So now white goes knight c3, which is the most natural move. On other moves you can just simply continue development. Let's say he goes this. You could just take. Let's say queen takes, knight f6, and just develop your pieces to active positions. Black has no problems at all here. Here you might even consider to take here and give this check on e6 to somewhat distort white's play. But bishop d2 is a really rare continuation. Everybody plays knight c3 here. It's the most natural move. And now black needs to know one specific maneuver here. And this is to take on f3. Bishop takes. And of course you still cannot take on d4 because of the bishop c6 check. But you have queen c4. And this is important to remember. This maneuver here prevents white from castling. And this is really a huge issue. White cannot get his king out of the center. So he needs to really do some drastic measures here to get his king out. Usually white takes on c6. He doesn't have much choice. What white could try is queen b3 also. This has the idea, if black captures on d4, that white could really castle. So you don't want to help him this way. But black can just take on b3 and continue developing. And now you see that white has a really damaged pawn structure here, this double pawns and still the isolated pawn on d4. So black is fine here. Maybe it's still around equal if white plays on in a very exact fashion, but this kind of position has got the tendency to be already quite good for black. White needs to prove that his structural weaknesses are not a huge issue. So in this position white usually takes on c6. And now you have a choice between a safe move and a somewhat risky move. The safe move, which I also recommend, is to take with the pawn. This keeps the queen's position on c4 alive and still prevents castling. But you can also recapture with the queen. But this is somewhat more risky. This is somewhat more risky. Sorry, I just got a call on Skype. Oops. This is more risky, and the problem is that white now can castle and has chances for active play with d5. You have some development issues, and So I recommend to take with the pawn. It's just a simpler solution. So now queen e2 check. White still has this castling issue, so he needs to get rid of the queen. And now just knight e7. Yeah, we've transposed into sort of, yeah, it's almost an end game. You've got queens off and two minor pieces exchanged. And this endgame is around equal. I think if white plays exactly, it's equal. Still, this position is playable also for win as black, because white still has this somewhat weak pawn on d4, and also the whole structure has a bit of the tendency to leave white with a bad bishop, as d4 is on a black square and f2 and b2 also. It sometimes leads to nice endgame play for black. I think this position is nothing to be afraid of. Also, you need to keep in mind that white initially tried to to play a gambit to get quick attack going, maybe on your king, and play aggressive attacking chess. And okay, this is just over. Now he needs to play some rather dry position, and this is most likely not to his liking. I have really good experiences with this position against attacking players. They are sometimes really helpless in these endgame positions. If you prefer a somewhat more complicated position, of course, you can also try this queen c6 move, but this is risky, really. I tried this a couple of times in blitz games, and without ever having really analyzed it, and I really got some problems. So it's not so easy to play in comparison to b takes c6, which is just easy for black. You've got no problems at all. So this gambit continuation really is nothing to be afraid of. What you need to know is, or need to be aware of, let's say you have this move order. White can easily play this here with the knight moves inserted, and this is just the same. So if you've got a weapon against this second d4 and then c3, you also have something against this. This is just a simple transposition. Okay, so this is the gambit continuation, c3. Now to queen takes d4. This is most often called the center game. Yeah, it's somewhat weird looking system, because white brings out his queen early, but it's yeah, it needs to be taken seriously. It's not completely stupid continuation. Black plays knight c6, which is a very natural move, of course, just attacking the queen, and white needs to move it and usually goes to e3 here. The idea to go to e3 is connected with preventing black from playing d5. If white is looking for another square, he sometimes goes queen a4. After this, yeah, you have a huge choice. You can just develop with normal moves like bishop c5, knight f6. There's nothing special to know here. I briefly looked at a move which has, I think, not been played before, or just rarely played, the check here, which I quite like. On bishop d2 you've got queen e7, which is already very nice for black. e4 is just hanging, and it's not so easy to protect it. So c3 and then bishop c5. Provoking c3 also pretty much prevents white from long castling. If he wants to castle long, he usually wants to put the knight on c3, and this is not possible now. Just normal development should be very fine for black. Okay, so queen a4, that is an alternative, but queen e3 is by far the main move. Now knight f6, just developing, and here white usually continues knight c3. In general, his idea is to play knight c3, bishop d2 and long castle, quickly castle long. Here white has some minor alternatives. One is, oops, not this, it's a main move, bishop d2. After this, black has a choice. He can just play bishop b4, after which white simply doesn't have anything else than knight c3, which just transposes. You could also think about bishop e7 to play d5 the next move. Is also fine for black. So bishop d2 is not dangerous. Sometimes white plays a somewhat strange move e5, attacking the e5 knight, the f6 knight immediately. But this can be punished really. Knight g4, queen e4. White needs to move the queen again. And now white's idea is that this move is supposed to be an error, a mistake, because of f4. But the fun thing is black actually can take it. f4 is answered with d5. Let's say queen e3, d4, queen to e2, and then bishop b6. The point is that f takes e5, black just castles, and has a huge attack really. This is a terrible position for white. If he captures on d6, black can go rook e8, winning the queen, so he cannot take. So knight f3 and then rook e8, and black will open up the e-file. You don't really need to memorize this, just keep in mind if someone really goes with this, sacrifice a piece here and then quickly develop your pieces and attack the king in the middle. Black has 2 pawns for the piece already and a huge attack. If you analyze this position with the computer, it instantly shows a pretty clear black advantage. So you just need to have the guts to do this. Queen e2 is another possibility. There black has got bishop g4, knight f3, bishop c5, which is pretty similar. On f takes e5 now, black even has moves like this here, and it's looking really terrible. Let's say h3, another possibility. Castles, f takes e5, knight takes e5. Queen e5, rook e8 is the queen again, and this is two pawns for a piece and a huge attack. Black has got everything developed, castled already. Queen h4 coming up and rooks in the center, terrible position. This is not defensible, I think. So e5 is just a gamble where black needs to know his stuff here. If you somehow don't dare to play this, which would be a shame because it's just nice. There's also an alternative here in d5, e takes d5, bishop e6, which is also fine for black. But you should really sack the piece there. It's a brilliant attack you will get. Okay, it's very rare that white plays e5. Okay, knight c3 is the main move, after which you go bishop b4. Just the most active way to deploy the bishop. Bishop d2, castles, long castle, and rook e8. And as you can see, black has a good development. Only piece not playing yet is the bishop on c8, but everything else is nicely developed. And now white usually goes queen g3, which is understandable because the e4 pawn is under constant pressure and black was threatening d5, so he moves the queen away. Other moves are also fine for black. Let's say f3, you'll already have d5 threatening d4 and putting huge pressure on the center, so f3 is no good move. Bishop c4 is a possibility, after which black has more than one good move, but a simple continuation is something like this: d6, f3, knight e5, winning a tempo, and then a5 with the idea of going a4 next move, or let's say bishop takes e3 and then a4, and the bishop is in trouble on b3. Black just has a nice position. He can also go bishop e6 to exchange this bishop, so not much to fear here. So queen g3 is the main move. Yeah, after this, there's just one thing you need to know. The e4 pawn, of course, is under huge pressure, and what you really should do is you should take it. If you play any passive moves here, like d6 or, I don't know, bishop f8 or something, white will have a nice attacking position. You simply need to take e4. The fun thing is that you have two ways to take it. There's rook takes e4 or knight takes e4, and both moves are probably fine for black. And what you do is, yeah, just a matter of choice. What you need to be aware of, it will be a tactical, yeah, a tactical fight there. Yeah, you need to really, yeah, calculate very sharp and concrete variations as you grab this pawn and try to get away with it. You have the best chances to do so. For instance, if you check this with the computer, he just says that black is, yeah, more or less clearly better, but it will be a tactical fight. Yeah, let's just look briefly at the two moves. The first move is of course knight takes e4, a simple move. White needs to take, rook takes, and okay, you're pawn up. What does white have for the pawn? Yeah, well, actually not so much. He's not ahead in development, but what he will achieve is he will most likely win at least one tempo on the rook on e4, and he's got a somewhat active queen position on g3. I'll just show a brief sample line. You could try bishop f4 here to attack the c7 pawn, after which black goes queen to f6. And now a little trick here, and this position is full of little tricks. White cannot capture on c7 as black plays d6 here. Now the bishop on c7 doesn't have a square, so it needs to capture. Or if he captures, let's say if he captures, but he doesn't have a square, so he needs to capture sooner or later. Then you got queen h6, king b1, bishop d6, and where black wins a piece, as this is checkmate. Yeah, our next move, checkmate, rook d1, still playable. So this position here is full of little tactical tricks. White cannot take, so knight here, let's say d6. Now black threatens to take on h3 and f4, so white needs to win a tempo here. Knight to d4, gaining a nice active square for the knight. King b1. White cannot take here because of this little trick. So you see it's really something, a very, very calculation heavy position. On king b1 here, black has a nice shot. Knight e2, queen f3, bishop a3. Very nice move. Threatening mate on b2. And takes here. You have a check. King c1. This one leads to checkmate. I'm not telling you actually to learn this variation. We're on move 16. I just want to show briefly the kind of tactical stuff that might arise here. Okay, king c1 takes, check here, and then bishop h3, bishop takes e4, bishop takes g4, g2, nice shot, queen takes here, knight e4, and black is just winning. He's got 7 pawns, white has got 4 pawns, so black has 3 pawns for the exchange, so and a dominant knight on e4. Black is just winning instantly here. This was just a sample line to show the kind of tactical struggles that might arise. That's something you need to be aware of. If you grab the pawn, and you should grab the pawn, everything else is just bad. You need to be ready need to be ready for a fist fight, so to say. You have no way to play this opening in a solid and slow, somewhat strategic fashion. You need to take the pawn and ride it out. An alternative here actually is to take on e4 with the rook. This is also possible. it's similar, but not quite the same position. The idea here, the basic idea is, of course, white takes here. This just wins outright, as there's simply too much exchanged, and black is just a pawn up for nothing. It's a central pawn even. So white cannot take on e4, so he mostly plays a move like a3, and then you have even the funny move bishop a5. Yeah, and this is somewhat similar, but of course the knights are still on, the knight on f6 and the knight on c3. And but the type of position is quite similar. It's also very, very tactical position where you need to calculate lines concretely. I don't want to go into much detail here. I don't think it's much use to show long lines in this variation. This setup with d4, ed4, queen e4 is rather rare. I never got it in a tournament game, and even rarely at Blitzer or other time controls. But what you need to remember is to get to this position here and then really grab the pawn. It's no use to play d6 or any other passive move. Then you will have a somewhat worse position, as white will develop with bishop c4, f3, h4, and so on, and he will try to really mate you, and he has some chances to do so. You need to grab this pawn simply and ride it out. Yeah, this was the center game. I think really you don't need to study much more in this opening. It's just too rare. If you want to, you can try to analyze this position a bit, maybe with the computer, to get some feel for the tactical possibilities. But well, honestly, black is just better in this opening. But you need to be aware that it will be a tactical slugfest, so to say. This is one of the very rare openings where yeah, white's somewhat risky play yeah, sort of forces black to go into a tactical fight. There's not much alternative here to grab it and play on with the extra pawn, but yeah, the need to calculate lots of stuff. Yeah, okay, this was second d4. So let's quickly recap what we've done so far. In the first video, or this is video 2 of the series, I've shown what to do against the King's Gambit. The second video we had the Bishop's game and the Vienna, and this video was about d4. Yeah, are there any other moves? Yeah, well, there are, but I don't think you need to have any specific stuff prepared. Well, for instance, I don't have anything else prepared if white goes something else. Actually, a couple of weeks ago, someone played second c4 here against me, and after this you can just simply well, develop your pieces, knight f6, knight c6. Very often against irregular setups, you can set up your pieces like this, and then knight f6 castles, or maybe f5 even. I played f5 in this game. Was in the Dutch league. White can also play passive moves here, like d3 or something. But of course, you don't need to study anything specific here. You can just develop normally bishop c5, knight c6, bishop c5, or you can try to play c6, d5. So you don't need to know anything specific here. These moves are simply not aggressive enough to put much pressure on you. White goes for something like g3, for instance. You have always the option to develop normally, but again, this even d5 might be an idea, as this leaves the rook hanging, and this can get awkward here, this pin. So other moves are really, you don't need to have anything special prepared against other moves. Yeah, okay, we've done I've done 3 videos now, one on the King's Gambit, one on Bishop's game Vienna, one on d4, and yeah, briefly showing the other moves. And the upcoming videos will be about the more mainstream lines after knight f3. After knight f3, I think the next video will be about the four knights, and also about the Ponciani opening, which is rare, but yeah, it might be played against you one time, so you need to have a little bit of something prepared. Okay, this will be the next video. Well, thanks for watching this video, and yeah, we'll talk to you soon with the first lines after knight f3. Thanks.